Wednesday Addams. We all know her. The queen of goth, the master of the deadpan stare, the cello prodigy who only plays in minor keys. But somewhere between the first piranha attack and the last illegal interrogation, she stopped being just a quirky outcast and started making decisions that raised some serious eyebrows. So if she were ever brought before a real judge, what would her prison sentence be like? Also, of everyone watching, only 1% is subscribed. So you guys better get it to at least 5%, otherwise, I don't know. Just please subscribe, thank you. So before we start with the most recent season of Wednesday, let's go back to the beginning. In the 1991 classic, The Addams Family, we get our first glimpse into the fact that Wednesday is a menace in the making. Pugsley is tied to a post with an apple in his mouth. Instead of a prop arrow, she knocks a real one. A sharp, pointy, very real arrow. As she takes aim, Pugsley keeps repeating, "Help me!" Firing a deadly weapon at another person, even if that person is your notoriously durable brother, is assault with a deadly weapon or aggravated assault. For this little piece of performance art, Wednesday would be looking at a 1-year stint in a juvenile detention facility. But this is just the beginning of her bad life choices. You might think a close brush with fratricide would encourage a child to perhaps take up a less violent hobby, but you would be wrong, because this is Wednesday Addams we're talking about. Not long after the arrow incident, we find her engaged in another wholesome family activity, strapping Pugsley into an electric chair, ready to send thousands of volts of electricity coursing through her brother's body. In any normal corner of the world, this would be an open and shut case of torture, or at the very least, another count of aggravated assault. But Pugsley, it seems, is totally cool with it. He gave his consent, so Wednesday manages to dodge a charge. Trust me, this isn't her last mistake. She's just warming up. Forced to slum it in a motel, they have to find ways to make ends meet. Wednesday and Pugsley decide to contribute to the family coffers by opening a lemonade stand, but the ingredients include poison. Now, even if nobody was foolish enough to actually buy a drink from 2 creepy kids selling toxic beverages, the act itself is a massive reckless endangerment. If some poor, thirsty soul had actually chugged a glass of their special recipe, Wednesday would be staring down the barrel of an attempted murder charge. For simply setting up her little shop, she has already earned herself 4 years behind bars. Just when you think things can't get any darker, Addams Family Values arrives to prove us all wrong. The film opens with Wednesday being present at the attempted burial of a live cat. We can hear the poor thing meowing from inside a shoebox, which is a pretty clear giveaway that it's not enjoying its own funeral. This is a straightforward case of animal cruelty, costing her 1 year. Soon after, the family welcomes a new baby, Pubert. She and Pugsley take their infant brother to the roof of the mansion, and with scientific curiosity, drop him off the edge to see if he'll bounce. Luckily, their father Gomez is there to make a heroic catch. But the intent is what matters here. Intentionally dropping a baby from a great height is child abuse, plain and simple. This little game would land her another year. Oh, and as a little bonus, the cannonball they also dropped lands squarely on Lurch's head while he was gardening below. We will count this as aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and will land her 10 years. At this point, it's clear that making smart choices isn't really Wednesday's thing. Not satisfied with the simple, elegant solution of gravity, Wednesday decides to get historical with her next attempt on Pubert's life. She drags out a full-sized, honest-to-goodness guillotine and places her baby brother's tiny little head in the stock. Fortunately, Pubert has some kind of latent Addams invulnerability and manages to stop the blade with his bare hands. But legally speaking, what he did doesn't matter. What she did is a crystal clear case of attempted infanticide, and she gets a life sentence. But her poor decisions don't stop here. You would think one attempt at decapitating a baby would be enough for a lifetime, but Wednesday is nothing if not persistent. In a later scene, we see her and Pugsley crouched at the top of the grand staircase. They're struggling to hold a rope, and at the other end of that rope is a small anvil, hanging precariously over the spot where Pubert is happily crawling on the floor below. They wait for the perfect moment, and then they let go. The anvil crashes down, missing Pubert by a split second thanks to the new nanny, Debbie. Once again, the baby is safe, but once again, the intent was murder. This is another undeniable count of attempted infanticide. Before she's even hit her teen years, Wednesday has already racked up 2 life sentences. Eventually, Morticia and Gomez decide that what their budding sociopath of a daughter needs is some fresh air and socialization, so they send her to summer camp. After being forced to participate in a painfully cheerful Thanksgiving play, she decides she's had enough of the forced positivity. She's cast as Pocahontas and goes off script, delivering a fiery speech about the historical injustices suffered by indigenous peoples before signaling her fellow outcast campers to set the entire stage on fire. That, my friends, is arson, a classic felony that comes with a hefty 10 years in the slammer. As the de facto general of the Indian campers, she directs their physical attack on the Pilgrim campers. This is called inciting a riot, and it adds another year to her sentence. But wait, there's more. The camp's mean girl, Amanda, is tied to a stake on that very same burning stage. By trapping her there, Wednesday is guilty of false imprisonment, and by lighting a fire with someone trapped in the middle of it, Wednesday is very clearly committing attempted murder yet again. That's a 3rd life sentence to add to her growing pile. Her rampage doesn't end there. She and her fellow outcasts grab the two annoyingly peppy camp counselors and tie them up. That's 2 more counts of false imprisonment, and she gets 8 more years. And let's not forget the audience, a crowd full of parents and children who are now trapped in a theater with an out-of-control fire. That's reckless endangerment on a massive scale, which tacks on another 4 years. To cap off her eventful summer vacation, she and Pugsley make their escape by stealing a camp van. While Pugsley drove, she was an active participant in the theft. That's Grand Theft Auto, another 5 years for the road. Wednesday's bad decisions start the moment she sets foot at Nevermore Academy. Her little brother Pugsley gets bullied by the water polo team. A normal sibling might tell a teacher or plan some minor social revenge. Not Wednesday. Her brain immediately goes to aquatic flesh-eating predators. Yep. She strolls over to the pool during practice with not 1 but 2 bags of hungry piranhas and just lets them loose. That's attempted murder. And the law doesn't care if you had a good reason. For that, she's looking at a life sentence. But it gets worse. One of the jocks lost a testicle. That's a specific gruesome injury, which counts as assault resulting in actual bodily harm, adding 3 years to her sentence. We can't forget the poor piranhas either. Dumping them in chlorinated water is a death sentence, which is animal abuse, adding another 1 year. And let's be real, the whole situation was wildly dangerous for everyone. That's reckless endangerment, and it's good for another 6 years. But this is just the beginning of her bad life choices. Wednesday doesn't just commit violent felonies. Her words are weapons too. She meets her bubbly roommate Enid, and instead of a simple hello, tells her, yeah, when I look at you, I imagine the following emojis: rope, shovel, pole. That's intimidation, and it carries a 3-year sentence. Later, she says she'll return Enid's kindness in her sleep. That's a classic criminal threat, adding another 3 years. She even strong-arms Thing into being her servant by threatening to lock him in a drawer. You can't just do that. That's coercion, and it's worth 5 years. She even brags about a past crime, admitting she sent a box of mousetraps to an editor who rejected one of her stories, injuring their fingers. That's a direct confession to assault resulting in actual bodily harm, tacking on 3 more years. Later, when some local yahoos harass her in town, she knees one in the groin and kicks 2 others to the ground with some impressive martial arts moves. While this is technically assault, one of them did grab her shoulder first, making her response an act of self-defense. So, no penalty there. And trust me, this isn't her last mistake. When auditioning, she is able to make a noise only dogs can hear, and some glasses break. While acoustically impressive, someone has to pay for the damages. We'll call that property destruction. Then she gets down to business, ordering Thing to follow a student named Rowan. Thing, clinging to a car bumper at her command, is stalking, and since he's her agent, she's on the hook for 5 years, and her threats just keep coming. She catches Thing reading her novel and threatens, "Breathe a word of this to anyone and I will end you." Another day, another criminal threat, another 3 years. Later, she breaks into Rowan and Xavier's dorm room to look for a book. That's breaking and entering and trespassing, a combo that will land her 4 years. Her masterpiece this episode, though, is the Po Cup boat race. She and Thing set up a bunch of traps to sink the other team's boats. Deliberately sinking boats in a lake is a great way to drown someone. That's reckless endangerment, which is a 6-year penalty. And because she planned it all out with Thing beforehand, they're both guilty of conspiracy. That's a serious charge, and it adds a whopping 14 years to her sentence. However, this is Nevermore, and the Po Cup has famously only one rule. There are no rules. Since sabotage and general mayhem are explicitly encouraged as part of the competition, she gets another lucky legal pass. She follows that up by sneaking into the Nightshades' secret library after curfew. Another count of trespassing, another 1 year. But her poor decisions don't stop here. Wednesday picks the lock to get into the old Pilgrim World meeting house, which is clearly closed off and forbidden. For her, a no entry sign is just a polite suggestion. This is another straightforward case of breaking and entering and trespassing, netting her another 4 years. Later, while snooping around in the woods, she runs into a squatter. She has Thing sneak up behind the man and choke him until he flees into the woods in terror. Having your disembodied hand strangle someone for you is, legally speaking, aggravated assault. This is a serious, violent felony, and it adds a hefty 10 years to her sentence. At this point, Thing is racking up an impressive record as a repeat accomplice and really needs to get his own lawyer. During Jericho's outreach day, Wednesday decides that the town's brand new statue of its problematic founder, Joseph Crackstone, is an eyesore that must be removed. So naturally, she has Thing light the fuse, and just like that, the statue is gone. Deliberately destroying property with an explosive device is called arson, and that's an easy 10 years in prison, plus a massive fine. She set off an explosion in the middle of a crowded town square during a public festival. The potential for injury or death is an act of reckless endangerment, adding another 6 years to the pile. By now, it's clear that Wednesday's definition of detective work is just committing a series of felonies until she gets an answer. She starts by breaking into the county coroner's office to copy files on the murder victims. This is breaking and entering and trespassing into a secure government building. That's good for another 4 years. Next, her suspicion falls on her classmate Xavier. She decides the best way to prove his guilt is to break into his private art studio to snoop around and steal his DNA. That's another count of breaking and entering and trespassing for another 4 years. Let's also look at her overall behavior. She is constantly following people, breaking into their private spaces, and digging through their personal belongings. This is considered stalking and carries a 5-year sentence. Next up, we get a little insight into her family hobbies. We learn that she and Pugsley enjoy going fishing with grenades. Yep. Besides being a terribly inefficient way to fish, possessing explosives without a license is illegal weapon possession and a simple 1-year sentence. Then it's time for some good old-fashioned mother-daughter bonding, Addams style. Wednesday and Morticia head to a cemetery in the dead of night to dig up a corpse. First, digging up a grave is called desecration of a grave, and messing with the body is a violation of human remains. That little stunt gets her 2 years. They are also trespassing in a private cemetery after hours, so that's another 1 year for trespassing. And since they planned this criminal adventure together, they are both guilty of conspiracy. That's a massive charge that adds a whopping 14 years to both of their sentences. After they inevitably get arrested, Wednesday goes from grave robber to master blackmailer. She discovers the mayor helped cover up a murder years ago. Instead of reporting this, she uses it as leverage. She threatens to expose him unless he drops the charges against her father. Using threats to force a public official to act is extortion, a very serious crime that comes with a 10-year sentence. It's also a form of coercion, which tacks on another 5 years. Her criminal skill set is impressively and terrifyingly diverse. But does Wednesday stop here? No, not at all. Wednesday has a real talent for dragging her friends into her terrible decisions. She ropes Enid into helping her break into the old Gates mansion. For Wednesday, it's just another charge of breaking and entering and trespassing. That's 4 years for her, and now her friends are legally accomplices. She follows this up by stalking the mayor into town, this time by hiding in the trunk of his car. It's another classic case of stalking, adding another 5 years to her sentence. While she's in the Gates mansion, she pockets Laurel Gates's ballerina music box. It's not a huge heist, but it's still theft, which adds 6 months to her sentence. Inside the mansion, it turns out the house is the monster's lair. The monster attacks, and they barely escape. Knowingly leading your friends into a situation where they could be mauled to death is the absolute definition of reckless endangerment. That's another 6 years for her. And even after this, Wednesday's decision-making does not improve. With Uncle Fester and Thing, Wednesday cracks the hidden safe in the Nightshade's library to retrieve Nathaniel Faulkner's Hyde diary. That's breaking and entering and trespassing for another 4 years. Then Wednesday and Fester tail Xavier on a motorcycle and watch his secret meeting with Dr. Kinbit in the woods. She's a certified stalker by now, and let's add 5 more years. Finally, she breaks into Xavier's studio for what feels like the 100th time. Another charge of breaking and entering and trespassing, another 4 years. Her investigative method is literally just commit the same crimes over and over again until something happens. In the season finale, Wednesday goes completely off the rails. She decides to take the law into her own hands and kidnaps Tyler. She has Bianca use her siren song to lure him to a shed, where he wakes up chained to a chair. This is kidnapping, a huge felony that carries a 7-year sentence. Keeping him chained up is false imprisonment, which adds 4 years. Then she starts torturing him. She pulls out a taser and a bunch of other nasty-looking tools. This is a torture session. Legally, it's aggravated assault, and it's worth a brutal 10 years. All the while, she's threatening him, which is another count of criminal threat, adding 3 more years. Even after all that, she still finds time to sneak into the jail to visit Xavier, committing one last breaking and entering and trespassing for the season, netting her a final 4 years. Wednesday ultimately stabs the resurrected Joseph Crackstone through the heart, ending him for good. But since he was an undead monster actively trying to kill everyone, this is a clear case of self-defense. She gets another pass. A new season begins, and Wednesday has clearly spent her vacation brainstorming new crimes to commit. She starts by stealing confidential files from a crime scene, which is theft of government property, earning her 1 month in jail and $2,000 fine. Then she tries to take an arsenal of old-timey weaponry, including brass knuckles, through airport security. Real smart. That's illegal weapon possession, and trying to bring it on a plane gets her a solid 2 years. Shortly after, she follows and tries to tase the Kansas City scalper. Even if he's a bad guy, you can't just run around zapping people. That's stalking and attempted assault, a combo that adds another 2 years and 3 months to her sentence. After he captures her, she escapes with the help of Thing and attacks him with a knife. Using a deadly weapon like that is aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, a serious charge that comes with 10 years. We later find out the guy was scalped. That kind of permanent injury is assault resulting in actual bodily harm, adding another 3 years. She's still a terrible sister, it turns out. She bullies Pugsley into using his powers by threatening to abandon him. That's not tough love, that's coercion, and it comes with a 5-year sentence. His power demonstration inevitably goes wrong, knocking down a stop sign and causing a car crash. Since she forced him to do it, she's the one on the hook for the reckless endangerment that followed. That's another 6 years behind bars. To make matters worse, she decides to keep one of the killer's dolls that she gifts to Enid, which is basically taking evidence from an active investigation. We'll call that theft. good for another 6 months. To end the first episode, she sets fire to the founder's stage and the painting during a ceremony. That's property destruction and another act of reckless endangerment because, fire in a crowd. That's another 6 years plus $250. Jeez. But her poor decisions don't stop here. Wednesday enters Sheriff Galpin's house without permission to investigate, finding him dead. Unlocked door or not, that's breaking and entering and trespassing, which is good for 4 years. Then she pulls off her most audacious crime yet. To get a car, she pretends to be Enid and uses her signed consent form to trick the driver's ed instructor. Stealing someone's identity like that is identity fraud, a massive felony that comes with a 15-year sentence. During her driving lesson, she cuts the instructor's brake line and speeds off. Willfully disabling a car's brakes with someone in it is a horrifying act of reckless endangerment. That's another 6 years. The speeding itself is reckless driving, which adds 6 months. She was willing to send an innocent man careening to his death just to borrow his car for an afternoon. That's a whole new level of terrifying. At this point, it's clear no one is safe from Wednesday's boundary issues, not even her own parents. She sneaks into their cottage to steal a spellbook. That's trespassing and attempted theft, which could land her 1 year in jail. Then comes the color war game at Camp Jericho. During the competition, where the only rule is that there are no rules, she directs a swarm of bees to attack other cadets, kicks one unconscious, and rigs an improvised zipline across a busy watchtower area. In any other context, this would be assault and reckless endangerment. But because the game's rules explicitly allowed it, she gets a pass. But her lawful streak doesn't last. She breaks into Donovan Galpin's private cabin at night to snoop around. That's another count of trespassing for another 1 year. While she's there, she pockets some old newspaper clippings off his wall. It's not the crime of the century, but it's still theft, which will add 6 months to her sentence. Her main goal, however, is getting that spellbook from her mom, so she manipulates Morticia into a blindfolded sword duel for it. Forcing someone into a fight with threats and manipulation is coercion, and that's another 5 years. Even her own mother isn't safe from her criminal shenanigans. Wednesday's grand finale for the first part of the season starts when she steals what she thinks are a person's ashes. They turn out to be fake, but she thought they were real. And in the eyes of the law, intent matters. That's violation of human remains, which carries a 2-year sentence. Then she launches her plan to break into a psychiatric hospital. She gets in by hiding in a car trunk, which is trespassing on a vehicle, for 1 year. Her accomplice creates a diversion with explosives, which means she's guilty of the illegal use of explosives by association. We'll classify that as another act of severe reckless endangerment for 6 years. Inside, she steals a guard's keycard. That's theft and trespassing, adding another year and 6 months. Then she breaks Uncle Fester out of his cell. That's aiding an escape, which gets her 2 years. But does Wednesday stop here? No, not at all. She leaves his cell door open, and his zombie roommate gets out. Letting a zombie loose in a hospital is the definition of gross negligence, and it comes with a hefty 10-year sentence. Thankfully for her, Fester was the one who decided to set everyone else free, so she narrowly avoids getting charged for inciting a mass riot in an insane asylum. It's the perfect end to another season of absolute criminal chaos. As we wrap it up, Wednesday's full list of crimes is staggering. From her childhood, she racks up 5 years for aggravated assault and reckless endangerment. Her summer camp experience alone nets her 3 life sentences plus 40 years for everything from arson and grand theft auto to child abuse and attempted murder. Then we get to Nevermore. Her first season brings in another life sentence for the piranha incident, plus an additional 172 years and 6 months for a laundry list of felonies, including kidnapping, torture, extortion, stalking, and conspiracy. Her second season adds another 89 years and 10 months and $2,250 in fines for identity fraud, aggravated assault, and gross negligence, among many, many other things. In total, Wednesday Addams faces 4 life sentences, 307 years, and 4 months in prison, plus fines totaling $2,250. And that is so far. Let me know below if I should update this video when Season 2 is finished, or if you want to see other characters on trial. If you want to see more videos like this, click the video on the screen now.